I'm Daniel, Product Manager in the Bender company for the business unit Hospital, and today I want to introduce the CP305, that you will see how easy it is to deal with it and to program this device. First of all, we have to do a point-to-point connection between the CP305 and our computer, and after it we have to power up the device and we have to wait for some seconds. After the device is powered up, you see the commissioning screen here. First of all, we have to unlock the screen, and the standard password is 8070. Now the screen is unlocked. On the first page, we can choose our language. For this video, we just use English. And with the second parameter, we can choose the display alignment of the CP305. If you use it in a landscape mode, you can easily switch the display rotation here via this parameter. On the second page, we can choose the protocol, our BMS, Bender Messgeräte-Schnittstelle protocol, and also a Modbus RTU protocol. The Modbus RTU protocol here in the first steps is just for Bender devices, like devices from our Neptune platform, RCMS 410, ISO 415, and so on. And on the third screen, we can do the parameters and set the parameters for our Ethernet connection. This is important for our point-to-point connection and also for the connection in networks, Ethernet networks in hospital and industrial applications. We can choose the protocol between HTTPS, the secure hypertransfer text protocol, and the standard protocol. We can switch the parameter DHCP on and off, so you can get automatically an IP address or set your IP address by your own if you switch the parameter off. And here on the lower side, you see your own IP address. After this, we press here on the green hook, and now we finished the first commissioning and setting the first parameters on the CP305. Now you see here a warning, a attention screen, and this warning screen shows that this device has no programmed alarm or test address, and for hospital applications we need a programmed alarm address for connected devices like the ISOMET and AdExchange over device or the EDS 151. Now we are ready to connect our CP305 with our computer. For this, we have to check the IP address under the point info. On the second page, we see the IP address. This IP address we have to type into our browser to get the connection to the CP305. So now we are ready to type in the IP address into the browser. Now the device is directly connected. First of all, on the upper right side, we press here on the button System11. This is the shortcut directly to our own device. Now we see our internal parameters here from the digital inputs on the screen. The status of relays. We have 2 relays on board and some other parameters. Don't hesitate. On the lower side, we see a DHCP error. This is just the reason we are directly connected to the device. We choose the parameter DHCP, and we have no real DHCP server. If you have a DHCP server and get an automatic generated IP address, there's no fault. If you have a standard IP address range and you use it, you can switch off this parameter and also don't see this point. But if you don't use any Ethernet connection, you can also ignore this fault. Now we have the point device tools. Under device documentation, you can generate a PDF file with all relevant parameters. That makes sense if you have a system and connected to different devices. You can generate this PDF with all parameters. Now we go back to device tools. We have also the opportunity to export and backup of a device and import a backup also on this device. It's very easy to deal with this backup if you generate for your system, your country and your applications a standard system. You can use this backup in every CP305. Another very beneficial display function is the history logger for first investigation directly on site. In the application, you can scroll and see all faults, marked red, the upcoming faults, marked green, the faults are gone. And with a tap on the fault, you see more information, what was happened and when it was happened. So now we switch to the point menu and see three buttons. First of all, we use the history button. Under this point, you see the history logger with all relevant points and all relevant events, state of the alarm, beginning of the alarm, end of the alarm, and you see the alarm types. You also have your opportunity to see the history logger on the device, but with less information, because this screen is much bigger than the screen of the CP305. Now we go to the point settings. Under settings, you see several points you can choose. First of all, we start on the upper left side with the digital inputs 1 to 12. We have 12 digital inputs on board. So on this page, we can do the settings for the digital inputs. You can do the settings for all of them together or separated. You can choose the mode, active low or active high, set the reaction times for all digital inputs or for all separate. In the menu for the relays, we can select for each relay the relay mode, non-fail-safe and fail-safe. We can select the functions that the relay reacts on an alarm address, on the buzzer, on the alarm address and the buzzer together. And we can have a retrofit solution for old isometers that needs an external trigger to set an external isometer test, and we can use this relay also as a switch. For the switch functions and also for the programming and reaction on alarm addresses and buzzers, we need some additional programming and parameters later more. Under the point interfaces, we can select the Ethernet parameters and set them up. Here, you know it from the first commissioning with a DSCP, and you can also manage the HTTPS certificate for a safe connection to your Ethernet system. Under the point RS485, we can select our own protocol, the BMS protocol or the Modbus RTU protocol, but we can just use one protocol for every application because we have just one physical RS485 interface on board. One very important point for our own vendor protocols for the BMS and also for the generic vendor Modbus RTU protocol is the alarm polling interval. Here you can set up the time between 0 and 30 seconds, and this means here with the parameter 2 seconds, every 2 seconds the master sends a request onto the bus loop and asks for new alarms. So you will not ask device per device. The devices will poll the alarms to the master device to show it in a very short time. And here you see this point also for BMS under the point interval. Now we go to our next point, the NFC, the near field communication. Under the vendor logo, we have an NFC antenna integrated for the NFC communication with the Bender Connect app, and you can activate here via parameter and also on the display the NFC connection. You can switch it off for 1 or for 12 hours to interact with the Bender Connect app and the CP305. After the chosen time, the NFC will disconnect for themselves, so no other have a chance to get access to a CP305 except he or she has the password for the CP305 and can activate this parameter. Under the point general, we have a parameter for the device identifier. You don't have to change it. So next. The next point is the individual text. So you can have an individual text for the CP305 and for all digital inputs. You know also individual text from our gateways, the COM465IP and the CP9 series. On these devices, you can set up individual text for every device. This is here not possible on the CP305. You just can use the individual text for the digital inputs. Maybe if you have connected medical gases or UPS alarms to your device, you can give them individual names for every channel. So under the point history, we can just clear the history logger, one press on execute, one press on OK, and we deleted all entries in the history logger. Now we have a point clock. Here we can set all parameters for our internal clock we see on the CP305 screen. We can apply the current time. With a press on this button, the CP305 takes over all information from our laptop. And depending on the time zone where you are in, you can set here also the parameters, including the automatic change of a summertime. If your CP305 is connected to a network in hospital or industrial applications, you can also use the time synchronization of a network via automatic DHCP server, or you can type in the IP address or the name of a SNMP server. The point security is responsible for setting our PIN code for the display or setting the PIN code for the web server access. If you forgot your password, no problem. Our service is able to create a one-time password that you can set back your own password and give you a new password for yourself. Under the point buzzer, you can select the status of the volume of your buzzer, high, normal and low. The default parameter is always high. And you're able to mute the alarm for 1, 2, 4 and 8 hours. This is just a feature for the commissioning, so you don't bother anyone on site if you do the commissioning with permanent alarms out of a CP305. Under the point service inspection, you can set a service interval from 3 months up to 4 years. And you can set up also a pre-warning. So you get a pre-warning some days or some weeks before the service inspection comes up. Under the point service inspection, you can press on execute and OK. And the day you did the service inspection is written into the history logger. Under the point factory settings, you can restart the device. You can set the factory settings without interface and with interface. With interface, you will delete all parameters. Without interface, you will save your parameters of the interfaces of the RS485 protocol and also of an Ethernet connection. Now we are going to the next step to program alarm addresses on the CP305. For this point, we are open the point monitoring and alarm addresses. First of all, we have to set up an alarm group, add the entries, choose the name of the group, my test group. You can type in here different names. For example, or my recommendation is type in the name of a medical IT system for hospital applications, and you can choose the icon that you want and that you prefer. So now we have a test group. Very important for all points, always press Save Changes. Now we can create an alarm address. Same way, at entry, here on this page, we can select the path, gateway, interface, BMS, because it's our selected protocol, and we start with our isomet, measured values, and we start with the first channel. In the next steps, I will explain why this is so important. After selecting the path, we can set up different parameters, the alarm priority. This is important for the alarm color because a warning has not the same priority as an alarm. And after the standard, we have to choose for the insulation fault the color yellow because it's a warning. Our recommendation for a transformer over temperature is a red alarm, and this is a real alarm, not only a warning. So choose the right priority for your kinds of warnings and alarms. We have a repetition interval. For medical IPS alarms, it's not necessary, but it's necessary if you deal with alarms of medical gases. Active on pre-warning, you can set this parameter. It's especially good for industrial applications if you deal with RCMS applications. The parameter active on test, we activate it because it's important for hospital applications for the recommended daily isometer test, for the insulation level, for the transformer over temperature and the transformer overload. We don't select automatic or alarm color. For the insulation fault, we select the alarm color yellow, and you also see the hex code of the color yellow. It's important later if we deal with our Excel spreadsheet. Now we have to select our alarm group and change now to the next page dialog. Okay. Now you can choose the next options. We want to show the alarm group because recommended if you have different IT systems that you will alert on one CP305 or on one central panel. Show the device description is also important, that you know my device, it's the isomet that sends out the failure. Show individual device descriptions. We deselect this parameter because we have no individual device descriptions for connected RS485 devices. And we also don't choose the parameter show individual alarm tags. Also recommended is the point show channel description of a measuring point, because you will have automatic the description of a channel. As example, if you use the ATIX changeover, you can deal with a couple of names for the recommended and the second feeding line of the ATIX. AV, SV, change it, or line 1, line 2, and you will always have the selection of the ATIX here on the screen. The next point, show the individual text of a measuring point, is not necessary. So, show the measured value. Whatever you need in your application, choose this point or deselect it. The point show path, you can use it, depends on your kind of application. Just for the medical staff, I don't recommend this point. For technicians, this point could be very helpful, so we see directly the path, what kind of failure is happened. On the next page, image, we are able to show in our alarm pop-ups also pictures. For this, we have to choose the image. Here I upload this image, and now you see the image here on the screen. You can upload up to 10 different images to deal in all alarm addresses with Under show instruction, you can type in an individual instruction for every channel. For example, the EDS-151, our insulation fault location system. In typical applications, you can type in the name of a socket. So the benefit for the medical staff is we know on which socket is the faulty device connected. Here is a fault as the text. Now you see here the point at entry, and we can choose a second language. Because we can switch during operation the language on the screen and also the troubleshooting introduction. I will use a German text. So the next point, alarm tone, very important because for medical applications we have to show a visible and audible alarm. For this point, the buzzer is active and we have to select the profile. Our recommendation for IPS alarms is a toggling alarm tone. Here 600 and 900 Hz in a slow mode. And you see here the point delay in minutes. This point is for applications with silent intensive care units, but you must be aware of a point where you have two alerting devices, maybe two CP305s in the system. One can be acknowledged for alarm for the whole system, but the sound must come up in the same moment the pop-up come up. For the other, here for example, we can choose a delay of 1 minute. The alarm comes up after 1 minute if no one acknowledged on the second device the tone. Under the point relay, we can activate the relay or the relays. You can choose no selection, relay 1, relay 2, or you can trigger both relays. Now we created our first alarm address and can press Save Changes, and all points are now transferred to our CP305. You see, we have a lot of parameters to create one alarm address for the CP305. But now we come over to the easy part. We can export an Excel spreadsheet. After press on the button Export, your system will generate automatically an Excel spreadsheet. You can open this Excel spreadsheet. Here you see the opened Excel spreadsheet and you see German words. No problem. Your system will deal with your selected language on your computer. So now we can deal with all Excel functions with copy and paste to create all alarm addresses for this device. The important point, the ID must be ongoing. The source topic, this is our BMS address 4, it's the address of the isomet, and the channel 1 must be also ongoing. Up counting. Source priority and other parameters you don't have to change. Another point we can do changes is the pop-up instruction depending on the channel you want to alert, and also the part with the alarm color. But if you are not sure what is the alarm code hex for red color, you can change it later on the web device. Now we selected all parameters for 12 channels for the isomet, and here maybe on this channel we want to give a special pop-up instruction. Now we type in extra here with the Excel functions the word special. You will see it later on the screen. Now we go over to the point groups. On the point alarm groups, we can set up a couple of alarm groups with different labels. Here, my second test group for us, including icon, we choose the same, and we want to show it in our visualization. On the point images, this is very important. It's an absolutely don't. You see the name and the idea and the size of the icon, and you see a data string. don't change this data string. If you change just one character here, you don't have any picture in your CP305, because the software calculates the picture in this way and deal with the picture in this way. Please don't change any character here. The point meta, you can ignore it. And on the point help, you have a small introduction and a small help what the points in the alarm spreadsheet means and what you can type in. True, false commands, or do you have to type in numbers like for the channels or the ID. On the point localized instruction, you can set up the instructions, the pop-up instructions for your second language. You just have to use the same idea as on this page alarm entries, and for the selected language you have to use the language code. Here for Germany, Deutschland DE. Now we press on save and can close the Excel spreadsheet. So now we are able to upload our Excel spreadsheet into our CP305. We choose the Excel file, open it. Now we see that the upload was successful. If you have any faults or any mistakes in your Excel spreadsheet, please read the instruction. It seems a little bit strange, but you see what has happened and what was wrong. Now we press save. You can use your own template that you create one time and just copy from one Excel to another Excel and just do the major changes like the idea, the address of a device and the color. But you can also change the color here. Very easy. If you are sure that this is your channel, you have to select another color. Do it, press save, and you see that you have another color programmed for this alarm address. We programmed a couple of alarm addresses for our ISOMET to display the alarms here on the CP305. Now I triggered an installation fault. We see the alarm address here with a troubleshooting introduction, our pop-up icon and all programmed informations. We not only have alarms for channels, it could be also that a device is broken or defect. In this case we have the device failure monitoring. Very easy way is import the actual status, and you see for the device failure monitoring that all devices that are in the loop copied into the system. Now you can choose if you want to keep it or kick it. Save changes, and the web browser will upload directly all parts into the CP305. Another important point, the test addresses, because we recommend a daily isometer test. In this case, at entry, select the path for the device, the isometer, press OK and save changes. Now we created the test address for our isometer. You can create test addresses for all devices, but it makes no sense. You just see on the pop-up that the device try to ask and try to trigger the test mechanism, but only for hospital applications, the isometer, ATIX and the LIM 2010 for UL applications use this trigger for test addresses. Now we are going to the device management. We can deal with Modbus devices, and if we do this, we have to select the right protocol. We do this with a click on System, Menu, Settings, Interface, RS485, and change the protocol to Modbus. Press Save. After choosing the protocol Modbus RTU, we can press here on Manage Devices, and it's a direct shortcut. Now we want to add a Modbus device and scan and configure devices, integrate devices manually, but we want to use the scan and start here the scan for the Modbus devices. Now you see one device was found on our loop, and I know here on my test system I have just one Modbus device and can stop the scan. On this list you see all Modbus devices with CP305 found in the loop. Press next. Now you have an automatic handover for all integrated channels in the devices with CP305, and here in this case for RCMS 410 hand over all relevant data automatically. You don't have to create any channels by your own. Press on next and press on complete. In this case, this Modbus RTU device is now integrated in our loop. So with the CP305 we have the opportunity to show different things on the start screen directly on the device. For this point we go into the device management and select the point main page. We have different opportunities to organize the main page. Point 1, 2 and 3 are necessary for UL applications, and for our normal points showing measurements, showing free texts, you can choose all of them. We select the last one with 4 points, and now you see we have just integrated empty lines. With the point functions we can open the next pop-up. We can show measured values, free text, date and time, the empty line, and we can choose the switch. I will explain now the first point, the measured value. Here you know it from the alarm addresses. You can select the path. Here for the isomet with the installation level. Type in text, installation level, press OK. The next point we choose is a text. It's a complete free text. I will do it. I type in complete free text, press OK. For the third line, I will show you date and time, press OK. And for the last one, we can create the switch function. We press on switch. Now we can select also a text, type in switch for example, and select relay 1 or relay 2. Now we created the content for our main page. Press Save Changes, and now directly we see our content on the starting page. One important topic, we selected the function switch and we give the relay 1 the information that we use as a switch. Otherwise, the CP305 on the main page will give us a failure message that we have done a wrong configuration. Now I will explain what is beyond the point service. Our certification settings. You can here manage all HTTPS certificates. Under the point update, you can upload the update files that you can download on our Bender homepage. For a running system in the field and you have no bugs, it's not necessary to do updates every time if a new update is available. Under the point searching devices, after the first commissioning, you can press search devices for the BMS and you will force the time for searching devices on your loop. The point log files is necessary for our developers. If you have something strange in the field, you think you have a buggy system, please press on log files, generate the log files and hand over the log file, including your system backup, and send it to our first level support. Under the point document system, you can generate a PDF with all information that are necessary for your own system, addresses on the BMS or Modbus addresses, including configurations. The point hardware reset, you can reboot your device via web server. So here you see the point import TMKZ files. This point is necessary and very helpful for retrofit projects. If you have an MK2430 installed in the field and you want to do a retrofit to a CP305, do your customers something good with an upgrade on a newer, better device, you can download the TMKZ file from the MK2430 and upload directly here into the browser, press on save, and all alarm and test addresses will create it automatically here in the system, and you can do the change from the MK2430 to the CP305 very easy. Here you see our main page with the installation level and the value, our free text, the complete free text, the time including the date, and our switch. Here you see that I trigger the relay with a press on the switch. Here you see our test button. The test button is just active if you program a test address with a press on test. You see the test addresses, press on start, and now the CP305 triggers all connected devices that have a test trigger set it. We can acknowledge the acoustic alarm, just waiting. Here we have a green hook and the test was successful. Thank you for watching this video and have a good day.